Imagine having your parents put a crosshair on your back like that in a room full of people who are just out of their minds.
Mom, Nicole,
the party of family values, dude. Crazy.
has become...
Oh, Hasanabi head in the news. His dad is in prison for January 6 crimes. He doesn't want Trump to pardon him. Oh my God. Repping the merch and everything. That's crazy. All right. Let's take a look.
If Trump pardons your dad, what's your biggest fear?
You know, just getting shot in the street. I don't know.
By your father?
By my father, by someone he knows. There's a bunch of people that I don't know, and I don't know their intent. So, you want to help me lift this?
Sure.
This
Let's go.
is Jackson Reffitt.
Do you want me to take this end here, or how do we do
Yes,
this?
please.
He's moving out of his home here in Texas, he says, for his own safety.
Bought a gun because I got so paranoid, and moving out because I'm scared.
Do you know how to fire a gun?
Yeah, I've been shooting it.
Do you have it on you right now?
Yeah, I have to wear it around the house kind of often just to get used to how it feels.
Okay.
But I'm part of the,
Jackson's dad is Guy Reffitt, who is a member of the Texas 3%er militia.
And I just kept going, go forward! Go forward! I couldn't even see, bro.
He's serving a more than 7-year sentence for his role in the January 6th Capitol attack. Reffitt was convicted of 5 felonies, including carrying a firearm on Capitol grounds.
So you reported your dad to the FBI?
Yes.
That's what got him arrested, basically?
More or less, yeah.
Oh,
what
God.
effect has that had on your family?
I'm actually worried, man. I'm actually worried. I'm worried. Can you explain the difference between you and a norm defender? I don't care about norms. I don't care about institutions. I care about people. I care about preserving. I care about protecting people. I care about doing right by others. Okay? I'll give you one immediate example. The Senate parliamentarian refused to add the increasing of the minimum wage to $15 at the federal level to a budget reconciliation bill. That was a must-pass bill that was going to pass with 51 votes, which the Democrats had at the time. Now, the Senate parliamentarian is a position that technically has the power under our norms and institutions to say, well, this can't be a part of budget reconciliation because it's actually not going to touch the deficit, right? That's real. That's a thing that they have. It's not an elected position, however. It's an appointed position. What that means is you can actually fire that person and put into that position a person who will play ball. Now, the reason why I know that that is the case is because the Republicans have done that in the past. The Republican Party under Dick Cheney's leadership did exactly that. They fired a Senate parliamentarian and put a new person there. The Democrats, on the other hand, go, oh, we care about our institutions. We care about the norms. So we have to take out the $15 minimum wage. There's nothing we can do. Okay? It's ridiculous. You're only doing that as a part of the Democratic Party leadership structure because you don't want $15 minimum wage. You don't want to have that battle. You don't want to whip those votes within your own caucus. And you don't really necessarily care. Okay? It would have technically been considered a violation of the norms, right? If they were to fire that person, or at least tell that person that they're going to fire that person if they don't play ball. But ultimately, I don't care. What I care about, on the other hand, I don't care about the norms. I don't care about the institutions. I care about, protecting people. I care about putting people first. Anyway, going back to this, this is truly terrifying. I'll be honest.
It's destroyed it.
Was there a moment where you thought, I know my dad's done all this stuff, but I don't want to report him?
Yeah. I still feel horrible, of course. Like, I can't get over it, but I don't regret it.
When was the last time you spoke to your dad?
5 months ago. It was the first time I talked to him. And it was just a crying fest for the first 10 minutes, and that was great. And then I brought up the fact that I'm worried about him getting out. And he was almost puzzled, you know, like he was confused as to why I thought that.
Are you overreacting?
No, I get death threats daily, hourly at this point.
Unbeknownst to us, it was our 18-year-old son who turned his dad into the FBI.
Why? Why did he do it?
My son is a declared Democratic Socialist.
Jackson's
They've like abandoned this person. You know what I mean? They're just like, yeah, he's an enemy. He's an enemy of the state. He's an enemy of our beautiful president, Donald Trump. That is not good. That is definitely insane. Imagine having your parents put a crosshair on your back like that in a room full of people who are just out of their minds.
mom, Nicole,
The party of family values, dude. Crazy.
has become one of the most prominent people campaigning for the release of people serving time for January 6.
We lift up each and every one of our J6ers, Father.
You've been coming here for hundreds of nights.
Almost 900.
Why?
You know, after I saw what happened to my husband, I could not sit on my hands at home anymore.
Christopher Albert.
Oof, no wonder, dude, no wonder. I mean, no wonder he's moving. I mean, look at this. Imagine this being your mom. That's crazy. I mean, there are some chatters whose moms are like this, but even then, they're not like, I don't think they put a target on your back, right? I mean, this is brainworms, man. This is so, be nice, question mark. What are you talking about? Be nice. What are you talking about? If your mom, Chuck Dilly, okay, sat in a room full of like 3%ers and Proud Boys at a gathering and went, Chuck Dilly is an enemy of our cause, our movement, okay, in perhaps one of the most like heavily armed and radicalized groups that you can talk to, declare you to be an enemy, I would protect you as well against your parents. I would still love her. Okay, well, I don't think that is reciprocated, it seems.
Nicole left Texas and moved to Washington, D.C., where she takes part in a nightly vigil held here outside the city's jail.
Marcus Malley.
Do you wish Guy didn't come here on January 6th?
No, I'm glad he stood up for something.
Every night, January 6 prisoners from around the country call into the vigil,
Continue holding the line. This thing's almost done.
including Guy Reffitt, who recently called in to wish Nicole a happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Sorry I couldn't get you something better than 80 months, but you know, they're ass.
Are you confident that Trump will let your husband walk free?
I feel like Trump is a man of his word.
What's the next step for your family?
To continue to fight.
Together.
Nicole is sometimes joined in D.C. by her two daughters, Jackson's sisters, who've been caught in the middle of a divided family.
Is not shown on my father. We have nothing against Jackson. Jackson's my brother. I love him. I love him no more than I love my father. I love my father. I love my family.
From the beginning, the girls and I have received hundreds.
I don't think she's happy that her son stood up for something. I think she's very upset that her son stood up for something. She's happy that the dad stood up for Donald Trump because I think she loves Donald Trump more than she loves many things. But I mean, you can kind of tell when someone is bricked up here a little bit. If they're, I mean, at this point, like if you got like a little Jesus wagon thing going on with like a megaphone where you kind of carry that around everywhere, it's just like you need like a factory reset or something.
Hundreds of mailed death threats. I'm not talking about online things. I'm talking about rape to my daughters, death to my husband, death to me.
You don't think Jackson has to be afraid of his dad?
No.
Yeah.
I think that's been put on the record several times.
So why is Jackson still afraid?
I just think that it's the same thing where people think this red hat on my head is scary and dangerous. It's that same mentality. Jackson comes from a lot of love, and there's a lot of love left to be given. And justice for all.
I mean, I love my mom, of course. I love her.
Do you love your dad?
Of course I love my dad. I love my dad, but I can't feel safe around him. I hate having to put myself in this situation, to feel some sort of comfort after the election and what's going to happen when my dad gets pardoned, when all these hundreds of people get pardoned, and all these thousands of people get validated for their actions. And I'm one of those people that they call a traitor. And my dad once said traitors get shot. So that's been ringing in my head for years and years and years.
In a message from prison, Guy Reffitt said that Jackson has never had anything to worry about from me, and he will never have anything to worry about from me ever.
If your dad's watching this, what's your message?
I don't think, dude, I don't think you're, I mean, look, I can't know your personal experience, Chatter. I don't know if you're in here or not, but I don't think you have to worry about your dad. I think it's more so, other people that are in that community that you might have to worry about.
Message to him.
That I love him and that I hope he gets better. And I hope I get better too. I hope I grow out of this paranoia right now. And that I really thought what I did was right. I thought I did what I did to protect him and my family and the people around him and the people he could have hurt.
Let's talk about January 6th. I am interested in your kind of reflections on where we've come to. We've been playing images from that day in 2021 and talking about it through the morning. Obviously now Donald Trump's election set to be certified. He'll then.
I think that we are going to see more of this like malicious stuff. We're going to see more militia mobilizations happening under the Trump administration, especially considering that a lot of the militia movements historically, whether it be the Klan, have always operated in this weird space where they both have members within the Klan that are prominent members within the legal structure, whether it be judges or cops, right? But I think now we are, especially under the first Trump administration, that grew a lot in size and prominence. And under the second Trump administration, you are going to see the lines, the supposed quote unquote distinction between our legal structure, our police force, our military, our National Guard, and these sorts of militia movements merge a little bit more. I think those lines there's never really been like a hard boundary between the two, especially historically. But I think that we're completely going to cast aside what remained of this aesthetic boundary between the Proud Boys and the 3%ers and these kinds of like white nationalist, far-right militias and, Republican local officials all the way up to federal officials as well. This is perhaps the greatest example of what I'm talking about. ProPublica reported by Joshua Kaplan reported about a guy who went and intercepted the militia movement. Okay, John Williams. He went in and joined the ranks of the Oath Keepers. Okay. And it's really interesting because he didn't do this in unison with the federal agents. He didn't do this in collaboration with police officers. He didn't even do this. He did this seemingly on his own. He was like, I want to investigate what is going on here. And then after the fact, he turned around and gave all of this information to ProPublica reporters. For years, he carefully monitored the activity and found out something that we kind of knew already, which we had talked about before, especially with respect to the Proud Boys in Portland, for example, that these guys are directly in contact and sometimes directly working with members of law enforcement. Shocking. I'll give you some of the highlights. A freelance vigilante, a wilderness survival trainer, spent years undercover climbing the ranks of right-wing militias. He didn't tell the police or the FBI. He didn't tell his family or friends. He penetrated a new generation of militia leaders, which included doctors and government attorneys. Experts say that militias could have a renaissance under Donald Trump. He sent ProPublica a massive trove of documents and conversations he secretly recorded give a unique, startling window into the militia movement. On April 1st, 2023, Williams retrieved the bag from his closet and rushed to his car. He had no time to clean the dishes that he accumulated in his apartment. He did not know if armed men were out looking for him. He did not know if he would ever feel safe to return. He parked his car for the night in the foothills overlooking Salt Lake City and curled up his 6'4" frame in the back seat of a 20-year-old Honda. This was his new home. He turned on a recording app to add an entry to his diary. His voice started a high-pitched rasp of a lifelong smoker. Where to start, he sighed, taking a deep breath. After more than 2 years undercover, he'd been growing rash and impulsive. He had feared someone was in danger and tried to warn him, but it backfired. Williams was sure that at least one person knew he was a double agent now, he said into his phone. It's only a matter of time before it gets back to the rest. In the daylight, Williams dropped an envelope with no return address in a U.S. Postal Service mailbox. He'd loaded it with a flash drive and a gold Oath Keeper's medallion. It was addressed to me. The documents laid out a remarkable odyssey. Posing as an ideological compatriot, Williams had penetrated the top ranks of two of the most prominent right-wing militias in the country. He'd slept in the home of a man who claims to be the new head of the Oath Keepers, rifling through his files in the middle of the night. He'd advised elaborate ruses to gather evidence of malicious ties to high-ranking law enforcement officials. He'd uncovered secret operations like the surveillance of a young journalist, then improvised ways to sabotage the militants' schemes. In one group, his ploys were so successful that he became the militia's top commander in the state of Utah. Now, he was a fugitive. He drove south towards a desert 4 hours from the city where he could disappear. That's right. Now, what's really interesting about this story is, once again, this was not a federal law enforcement operation. It wasn't an infiltration by a Fed. It was just a dude who just went undercover because he personally was like, what's going on with these militias? What's happening here? He saw January 6, 2021. He saw the militia movements and their and how prominently they were a part of January 6, 2021. And he was like, I'm going to go and join these militias. I'm going to go and detail what they're doing. Hey, come on now, be fair. There are tons of cops that are currently infiltrating these militias. Yeah, the problem is the cops that are all over these militias are actually just, ideological sympathizers. I'm sure that there are some federal law enforcement officers involved in these militia movements, not because of their ideological allegiance to the militia movements, but, overall, yeah, I know you're joking, chatter. I know. I'm not missing the joke, chat. Calm down. Many of those that carry the badge are also fellow travelers. So, the Capitol riot had been nagging at me too. I'd reported extensively on January 6th. I sat with families who blamed the militias for snatching their loved ones away from them, pulling them into a life of secret meetings and violent plots, or into a jail cell. By the time Williams contacted me, through most of the most infamous groups appeared to have largely gone dark. Were militias more enduring, more potent than it seemed? Some of what he told me seemed significant. Still, before the package arrived, it could feel like I was corresponding with a shadow. I knew Williams treated deception as an art form. When you spin a lie, he once told me, you have to have things they can verify so they won't think to ask questions. While stories generally seem precise and sober, always reassuring for a journalist, I needed to proceed with extreme skepticism. The files that were sent over to ProPublica give a unique window at the once expansive and intimate into one of the most consequential and volatile social movements of our time. Williams penetrated a new generation of paramilitary leaders, which included doctors, career cops, and government attorneys. Sometimes they were frightening, sometimes bumbling, always heavily armed. It was a world where a man would propose assassinating politicians only to spark a debate about logistics. Federal prosecutors have convicted more than 1,000 people for their role in January 6. Key militia captains were sent to prison for a decade or more, but that did not quash the allure that militias hold for a broad swath of Americans. Why would it? After all, Donald Trump initially criticized them, but then turned around and said that they were political prisoners for doing the right thing. Obviously, if the most impactful figure who just won his reelection says that these guys are political prisoners, of course they're going to get away with it. Here, I'll give you one example, okay? We joke about January 6th is funny. A cop died of a stroke the day after, okay? And the suspicion is that the wounds that he got during January 6th from a guy who was beating his ass is responsible for the stroke. That guy's in prison for 6 years, okay? And Donald Trump is most likely going to pardon him. Now, there is no world in which, even if a person punches a cop repeatedly or hits a cop with a blunt object repeatedly, okay, and they die to a stroke the day after, okay, they die to a stroke the day after. There is no world in which they only get 6 years. Even if you used a blunt object to beat a cop, okay, and nothing happened to the cop, there is still no world in which you only get 6 years. Okay, that's like assault of a peace officer with a deadly weapon. Are you kidding me? There's just no world. That is not a real circumstance. The only way this happens is if you're doing this while you are participating in an insurrection for the president. Okay, for the current president who just won his reelection. That's it. Anyway, that cop died a week later in the hospital. My point is, even if nothing happened to the cop, let alone like the cop died or whatever, even if you just, do you think there is a world where the average American can just use an object to bludgeon a police officer, okay, and then get out in 2 years? There are instances where it's valid and warranted, where you are engaging in self-defense, okay, against a police officer who is out of line and abusing their position. Those people do not get this level of leniency from, those people never experience this level of leniency. I'm simply stating that it is crazy. It is crazy that this level of leniency only exists for Republicans, right-wingers that participated in an insurrection. Mishma, thank you for the 25 gifted subs. W Gifter. Now, President-elect Donald Trump has promised to pardon January 6 rioters when he returns to the White House. Experts warn that such a move could trigger a renaissance from militant extremists, sending them an unprecedented message of protection and support and making it all more urgent to understand them. Unless otherwise noted, none of the militia members mentioned in the story responded to requests for comment. Williams is part of a larger Cold War. Radical versus radical that stayed mostly in the shadows. A left-wing activist told me he personally knows about 30 people who've gone undercover in militias or white supremacist groups. They did not coordinate with law enforcement, instead taking the surveillance of one of the most intractable features of American politics into their own hands. I think part of the reason why people do this also is because they just don't trust the federal law enforcement officers. Like this person very clearly does not trust the feds. Okay, which is understandable because he's like, I went into the militia movement and I found out that there are, like federal attorneys that are a part of it, people who collaborate with the feds, people who are a part of the criminal justice system, prominent members who are also a part of the militia movement. Skeptical of authorities, militias have sought to reshape the country through armed action. Williams sought to do it through betrayal and lies, which sat with him uneasily. I could have been successful at this if I wasn't if I wasn't one of them in some respects. He once told me, I couldn't have done it so long unless they recognized something in me. If there's one moment that set Williams on his path into the militia underground, it came roughly a decade before January 6th, when he was sent to a medium security prison. He was early in his 20s, drawn to danger and filled with an inner turbulence. I guess he has the background. My mom was one of the founders of the Utah Citizens Armed Militia, which was organized to keep the peace at BLM protests. These militias are strange because they back the police, but they also don't think that the police are bad enough at their jobs that they have to step in. Yeah. Yeah. They also will, obviously, like with January 6th, fight back against the police as well. And we'll be shocked every step of the way that the police are not collaborating with them, partially because, like, in their hometowns, the police are definitely collaborating with them. And additionally shocked when, federal law enforcement or the criminal justice system ends up turning on them for doing direct, clear-cut violations of the law. But anyway, before we continue with this, let's take a look at what Funny Hat Man has to say about the January 6th committee members.
And stand on the Capitol steps and be inaugurated on January 20th. When you think about that arc of history, what goes through your mind, and how do you think we ended up here?
Well, I'll tell you what goes through my mind is 2000, the 2000 election with George W. Bush and Al Gore, when an election was decided by less than 1,000 votes, 450 something votes. And we had a peaceful transfer of power then. When I mean, imagine if an election today were really down to that number of votes. And so people like Al Gore and others, upheld the Constitution. And we saw, so I'm really struck by the notion that Kamala Harris will be, serving in that position that Mike Pence did, and upheld the Constitution. And so, it's a marked reminder of how important this peaceful transfer of power is. We've had it through history. I saw it in 2000. We're seeing it today, but we didn't see it 4 years ago. And so, I hope that this will just remind everybody, that this is how it's supposed to work.
One of the things we've heard, Mark, from Donald Trump is that he plans to pardon some of the people who were at the Capitol that day. Let's listen to what he said about this in December. Take a look.
You promised to pardon those who attacked the Capitol on January 6th. Are you still vowing to follow through with that promise?
We're looking at it right now, most likely, yeah. These people are living in hell.
Let me just...
And I think it's very unfair. Most likely, I'll do it very quickly. I'm going to be acting very quickly.
Within your first 100 days, first day?
First day.
First day, he says. Mark, what do you think the politics of this are for him? I mean, there are a range of offenses, right, that people were charged with and convicted of or pled guilty to, from violence to trespassing. If Donald Trump goes through with...
Trump's like, our prison's obsolete, I'm telling you.
Is he going to pay a political price? Will Republicans pay a political price?
Listen, I think he's going to try a hybrid. The politics are fraught both ways. I mean, his base, believes him when he said that he's going to do the pardon, so he's got to make good on that promise. On the other hand, it's only going to drag up those violent images of people attacking police, Casey. And so I think what's going to happen is he's going to find the lesser offenders, pardon those people, and the people who, where there was clear evidence of attacking or assaulting officers at the Capitol would be a whole different story, I believe.
Yeah. Mark, the other, of course, aspect of this is those who then went on to investigate what happened that day, the January 6th committee. Trump has also talked about what he wants to do there, what those people deserve. Let's watch what he said about that.
Everybody on that committee, for what they did, honestly, they should go to jail. I think everybody, anybody that voted in favor.
Are you going to direct your FBI director and your attorney general to send them to jail?
No, not at all. I think that they'll have to look at that.
So what about this particular piece of it? If he moves forward,
he's like prison. He's like American prisons are ruthless. They're brutal. We must release our political prisoners. Also, all of our political enemies must rot in prison. They must get locked up. We must throw them under the jail. We must do everything we can in our power to make sure they are punished